In the midst of rapidly changing topics in the entertainment world, there is one thing that is starting to attract the attention of many fans. Not because of a big announcement, not because of a sudden appearance, but because one question arose that began to be heard often. Why does it feel like certain names still appear in conversations even though the atmosphere is constantly changing? And this time, public attention again moved in a direction that many did not expect. What is widely discussed is no longer about activity. It's about staying power. Because in an era when one topic can go viral in the morning and disappear at night, there are names that still feel present in different forms. Sometimes through old works, sometimes through fan discussion, sometimes it's just because one person relives a moment that once passed. And imperceptibly, the discussion is alive again. That's where the longer discussion comes in. Some people start asking, has the standard of living changed now? Because in the past people thought existence meant constantly appearing. But now, people begin to feel existence can also mean staying remembered. Keep talking. Have room in the conversation. And that change in perspective makes it interesting. Because suddenly, what is observed is not the frequency of occurrence, but stayed in the public memory. Some fans began to mention that this kind of phenomenon feels unique. Because attention does not always come from something new. Sometimes it arises from something that has been there for a long time, but viewed in a different way. And when that happens, small things can feel big. Old moments can feel new. And a story that looks calm can feel constantly moving. But on the other hand, there are also those who see everything simpler. That maybe this is not a big phenomenon, not a specific pattern, but it is only proof that the work that was once present does still have a place in the memory of many. And interestingly, those two points of view both keep the discussion alive. Because nobody really wants to close it. Until finally came a sentence that began to be repeated often. Maybe what survives is not the moment, but the taste that remains after that moment passes. And since the phrase appeared, the direction of the discussion changed again. Because now what is sought is not only what is to come, but what keeps things going despite the passage of time. And maybe that's why some stories aren't really finished. Not because it keeps getting crowded, but because there are still people who have not stopped rereading it. Sparkles. And it was precisely after the discussion began to spread. One more interesting thing appeared. Because slowly people begin to realize that they are not talking about one moment. They are talking about the effect that remains after the moment has passed. And that's where the atmosphere starts to feel different. Not very noticeable at first. Just a little conversation piece. Brief comments. The discussion that arose then sank. But when everything is collected, starting to look one pattern that is quite unique. The topic changed. The discussion changed. But there is one name that keeps popping up at certain points. Not always in front. Not always the most, but enough to make people say, oh, it's still being discussed. And from it new questions arise. If there's something to talk about again, is it because it's still relevant? Or because people haven't really finished with it yet? The question sounds simple, but it turned out to open a much longer discussion. Because the more thought, more and more people are realizing that public attention doesn't always work the way it used to. Now something doesn't have to be present every day to still feel close. Sometimes, the one who survives is precisely the one who leaves space. Space to remember. Space to rediscuss. Space for interpretation. And the bigger the space, the longer the conversation lives. From here the mood begins to rise again. No more noise, but more intense. Because people began to notice something that was previously rarely counted. How long can a name stay around a conversation without actually being the center of attention? And when the question arises, the answer turned out to be not as simple as imagined. Because sometimes, what makes something last is not the number of occurrences, but the quality of connectedness. How often people come back. How easily people remember. How quickly one old moment feels alive again. And when the discussion gets to this point, many began to say, maybe it's not about the crowds or not the crowds anymore. But the question is whether people still feel there is a reason to return. Don't pull it. The longer the discussion goes, fewer and fewer people are trying to make predictions. because they begin to realize, maybe that's not what matters. The interesting thing is precisely to see how something can stay in motion without appearing to move. And that thought makes it all feel bigger than ever. Because now, even when there is no news, people keep paying attention, not looking for surprises. I want to see if the rhythm is the same. Until finally came a sentence that made many people stop for a moment. What if what makes something last is not because it keeps appearing, but because it never really finishes being remembered? And since the phrase appeared, the way people follow everything is changing again. No more chasing. It's like accompanying. It's no longer like waiting for an explosion, but like seeing that wave keep coming plan. And maybe that's what makes this atmosphere feel strange and interesting. As it gets quieter, it's just that more and more people are realizing that the conversation hasn't really gone away. And when a story still has people who want to come back, sometimes that's enough to keep him alive. Not just today, but much longer than expected. Sparkles. I continue as a direct line from the previous section. And after the discussion went on, there comes one thing that starts to make a lot of people stop and think longer. Because slowly comes the realization that maybe what is being seen now is not just a matter of sustained attention, but the question is how the attention changes shape. Fire first. People often measure the magnitude of influence from how often a person is seen, how much activity, how quickly new topics appear. But now, many are beginning to feel that size is no longer enough, because there is something interesting. Some things still feel close even when they're not constantly in front. And that's where the discussion starts to go in a bigger direction. Not anymore. Why is it still being talked about? But what keeps people coming back? The question is simple. But the longer thought, it is increasingly difficult to answer with one reason. Because the answer is different for everyone. Some come back because of memories. Some come back for work. Some come back out of curiosity. And there are also those who return for no apparent reason. Just because it feels unfinished. Don't pull it. More and more people are acknowledging that feeling. They begin to say that they do not feel that they are waiting for something specific. They just feel like they still want to see the next direction. And that's exactly where everything feels changed. Because when people no longer wait for one incident, but still want to follow, this means that what survives may not be the moment, but the attachment. From that point on, the mood changed again. People are starting to look at things again, not looking for theory, not looking for hidden clues, but want to understand. Since when exactly did this feeling begin to form? And it's becoming more visible. More and more are aware that the answer may not be there at one point, because it's something that lasts a long time. It is usually not built in one day. It is formed from many small moments, which is probably when it feels normal. But when I look back, turned out to be the foundation. And when that thought comes, many people began to be silent, because suddenly, what they see is no longer what is happening, but the whole journey they once followed. Then came a question that made the atmosphere reheated. How about later? When everything is already returning to a new rhythm, people just realize that the phase they remember the most was not the most crowded phase, but the most calm phase. Because it is precisely in times of calm, people begin to notice things that are usually invisible. They began to reread, start remembering, begin to understand. And maybe, that's what makes a phase like this feel long. Not because of the time, because of the way people live it. Until finally came a sentence that began to be shared often. Maybe not because the story is too big, but because people have not finished giving it meaning. The sentence is simple. It's enough to make a lot of people think again. Because it can be. What survives is not expectation, not curiosity, not even about what's coming, but about the relationship that has already been built during that trip. And if that's the case,